Hello everybody. Next up we have our second home game in a row as we play host to the great unwashed of Croydon in the form of Crystal Palace. Kick-off is at 3 p.m. on Saturday, but bear in mind that the Jubilee line is out between Green Park and Stratford. The alternative lines are likely to be a bit on the busy side. Check before you leave. So Palace then. They're from Croydon, which spawned the abomination that was the former Mrs. Percy. I may have mentioned that in the past. Croydon is somewhere that we should actually pay Donald Trump to take off our hands, if only because it's warmer than Greenland. As for Palace, well, it looks like another season where they're going to be fairly safe from the drop, by virtue of having just a bit more about them than the likes of Leicester, Wolves, Ipswich and Southampton. In fact, they've got a lot more about them than Southampton, but there again, as a kid, I had Subbuteo teams that would have given them a good game. Palace got off to a slow start, and it says a lot about the teams at the bottom that despite losing 5 and drawing 3 of their first 8, Palace still weren't bottom of the league at that point. The form has been a bit patchy over the course of the season. Although they have 5 wins under their belt, they've yet to win 2 in a row, though of late they have only lost 2 of their last 11. Their last 6 saw them win their cup final at Brighton 3-1, lose 5-1 at home to Arsenal, draw 0-0 at Bournemouth, beat Southampton 2-1 at home, draw 1-1 with Chelsea, and in this latest round of midweek encounters, they went up to Leicester and came back with all 3 points, following a 2-0 win in the Midlands. All of that has left them with 24 points from 21 games played, leaving them in 14th place, level on points, with Tottenham in 13th, and 2 points behind us in 12th. Although they haven't actually dipped their hands in their pockets just yet, I have brought Daisy back to work, as there has been a little bit of movement on the transfer front. They look likely to bring in 19-year-old Millwall winger Romain Esse, with a fee of £14.5 million being quoted by the various sources. Esse is an England under-20 cap and was left out of Millwall's FA Cup tie last week in order to protect the deal. Now, whilst Palace may be favourites to complete the deal, relocation wouldn't be an issue, there are rumours that Bournemouth might be interested in stepping in, something that will be a test of the player's sanity if nothing else. I mean, sunny Bournemouth or Croydon. Either way, the deal hasn't been completed at the time of writing, so we're unlikely to see him in action on Saturday. There will be one short in the squad in the defence department. Trevor Chalobah, having been told by Chelsea in the summer that there was no place for him in the squad, has now been told by Chelsea that there is a place for him in the squad after all. That decision coming following a series of injuries in the defensive areas at Stamford Bridge. Despite Chalobah's departure, there is unlikely to be a berth in the back four for former Arsenal centre-back Rob Holding. Strange story, this one. Palace signed the player from Arsenal in the summer of 2023, and that's just about it, really. He's made 1 League Cup appearance for the Glaziers, and since then, nothing. He hasn't appeared at all in the league, and his last appearance of any sort was as an unused sub when we played them at the Death Trap at the start of the season. Rumour has it that he took exception to being asked to do some warm-down running after that match, even though he had done nothing to work up a sweat all day. This led to a falling out with boss Glasner, ever since when he's been banished to training with the under-21s. As a non-person, he was even banished from the team photo sessions, and his only meaningful action has been as an overage player in the EFL trophy thing. Coventry have been sniffing around, but Holding is said to be holding out for a move to MLS, or indeed, if he has any sense, anywhere that isn't managed by Lampard Jr. Let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. And fresh off the printers comes the news that no Premier League clubs will be facing any punishment for breaches of the Profit and Sustainability Rules, or PSR. This, of course, follows some pretty spectacular movement in the early part of the summer transfer window, particularly with clubs with a 30th of June financial year end. This saw clubs entering into swap deals, whereby the profit from the sale could be booked immediately whilst the expense could be spread over the length of the player's contract, up to a maximum of 5 years. The best dodgy deal, though, came from Chelsea. Having kept out of bother last year by selling the 2 hotels they own to themselves, they repeated the trick by selling their women's team, again to themselves. Just the sort of iffy deal of which Ken Bates would have been proud. The rules will be changing next season, and I'm sure the accountants are working through the loopholes even as we speak. In other news, across the channel, plaudits go to Bourgoin-Jalloux from the French 5th tier, who knocked out top flight Lyon out of the French Cup, winning 4-2 on penalties after a 2-2 draw. Bit of a blow for Said Benrahma and co that, particularly as the amateurs play in claret and blue. The result was the biggest upset in European domestic cup competitions since Tottenham beat Tamworth the other week. Let's move on to us. Odd game, that one. For about 25 minutes it was the same old as we sat back and watched them play. The turning point was, oddly, a goal that we didn't score. Kilman looked offside. However, I would have been happier with the decision had the chap that won that god-awful Strictly Come Dancing programme been on VAR rather than Stewart. Yet another day I'm in a job despite everything, Atwell. However, the goal seemed to slap us into life. Much has been written as to how Fulham gave the ball away to Soler. However, not so much has been written on the subject of how the errors in question were actually forced by us. We seem to be hunting in packs a lot more, and whilst Pereira's crossfield pass was suicidal, nobody seemed to mention the fact that it was occasioned by the need to play a first-time ball due to the proximity of Alvarez breathing down Pereira's neck. Soler's first-time finish back across the goal was both exquisite and clever. The second goal was nicely worked, with Kudos, Soler and Wan-Bissaka all playing major roles in the one unique goal of the evening. Our third goal was, well, a carbon copy of the first. But again, Ings' role has rather been underplayed at the expense of everyone saying how poor Lino's role in the whole affair was. Of course, we wouldn't be West Ham without conceding, and the two carbon copy goals from Iwobi just showed the benefits of playing crosses into that corridor of uncertainty and having a forward run across the path of the ball. So, by no means perfect, but an improvement in certain areas. Lots more hard work, and the mood about the place will be buoyed by the 3 points, as will the hilarious sight of the league table at time of writing. A good start for Mr. Potter. On the injury front, it's much as you were. I did notice while scrolling through the TV channel list the other day that one of those nostalgia channels that shows 60s, 70s, 80s TV shows is repeating the old sci-fi series The $6 Million Man. For those too young to remember, which I'm guessing is probably most of you, the basic premise was that astronaut Steve Austin crashes his plane and gets rebuilt using bioelectronics, or bionics if you will. This enables him to run at 60 miles an hour, see for miles and lift heavy things with an arm that, mysteriously, never seems to set off the alarms at airports. Now, I mention this only because I was wondering if the medics looking after Antonio might be persuaded to do a similar job. Mind you, he might have an issue with his bupa. Daisy tells me that $6 million is worth something like $38,396,714 today, or £31,485,305 in proper money. Better check that excess, Mickey. Lots of positive noises about Bowen, whose return may be quicker than has been hoped for, however it's still a few weeks away. However, if the noises are positive on Bowen, they're pretty much non-existent on the subject of Todibo. Well, all sorts of unofficial rumours and noises, but nothing from the club itself. Fulcrook's hamstring will take him a while, whilst the non-hamstring injury, picked up by Somerville, is close but probably not ready just yet. So, on to the prediction. I'll give the Predicto Maticotron device another go. Whilst it got the result right on Tuesday, it still needs tweaking on the correct score front. I think the improvements from the having of a new boss are palpable, and another week in the job will only serve to get the message across just that little bit more. I'm looking for another improvement, so with all that keyed into the wretched machine, I'm going to place the £2 that I was going to put towards Antonio's bionics on the predicted score of a 2-1 win for us. All yours, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.